Well, it looks like we have several hundred on live and we have more coming in, so this will continue to build. But welcome everyone to the webinar. Let's officially get started and get into our content. As we see from the chat, people from all over the country and even the world are here today. Our topic today, brought to you by CMM, Cleaning and Maintenance Management Magazine. Today's webinar is Hard Floor Heroes, Take on the Challenges of Hard Floor Maintenance. And what a great topic today. This is not my expertise. I come from the carpet cleaning side of things, but I have three guests and we'll introduce them in a moment who are real experts when it comes to hard floor care. So I'll be asking a few questions and we'll get their input on what you need to hear about to improve your work with hard floors. But our sponsors for this webinar, Americo, Ecolab, Enersys, and Nilfisk. So we value our sponsors and we have very short commercials for each of them as we go through our presentation today. So sit back and enjoy. And today's webinar on Hard Floor Heroes will answer questions that you have. My name is Jeff Cross. As I put in the chat, I'm the ISSA Media Director. And assisting with this webinar today behind the scenes, doing all the hard work, we have Martha Schmidt, our ISSA virtual events producer. I just love Martha's picture. That's appropriate for a digital person. I hope she never changes that. And then Kathleen Misovic is the CMM managing editor. She's going to be watching the chat, watching the Q&A portal as well, which I should mention you can use that. And she will be gathering questions that we haven't covered, but questions you ask, put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and she'll compile those for the Q&A we'll have at the end of our webinar. But be sure, if you're not a subscriber already to Cleaning and Maintenance Management Magazine, to subscribe. Go to our website, cmmonline.com. You can get the print version, digital version. It's all there for the professionals that are here today. And if you have those with your company who are not receiving the magazine, they can subscribe as well. So be sure to share that information with them. Before we officially get started with the content, we want to make sure you know to interact. Since I started talking about the chat feature, we've had some 30 more show up. So be sure to use the Q&A or chat feature to talk, ask questions. I see the last chat, someone's from Columbus, so I have a fellow Buckeye here. But be sure to use that. We want to engage with you. You will receive a copy of this recording. So when it's all done in a couple of days, Martha will get it all together and email a link for you to have. So share it with your coworkers in your network, whatever you like. Be sure to share this because it will help everyone do their work. You are muted, no need to worry about that. And if you don't get that email, or if you just want to know where it's at in perpetuity, watch it on cmmonline.com. So it'll be there under videos forever. Want to mention as well, besides receiving CMM magazine, that becoming a member of ISSA opens up the world of cleaning to you. So if you're not an ISSA member, visit issa.com, or you can send an email to membership@issa.com. We want everyone here to be part of the ISSA family. And this is just a graphic showing all the different organizations and divisions and media brands that we have at ISSA. So let's do our first sponsor message. Sit back and enjoy. That's the company we are all familiar with, of course. So here we go. Our panelists today, you can see them on screen live and their pictures. Dane Gregory, we go way back. Dane's a good friend, IICRC approved instructor and president with 3D Corporation. Dane, it's a pleasure to do another webinar with you. We survived the first one. This is number 2.
But we're going to do 2. Thanks, Jeff. It's always a pleasure to be on a webinar with you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what my colleagues have to say about this too.
I think everyone's hoping for that. We all want to learn from each other. William Washington, we just met recently. He's the unit director with SSC Services for Education. So William, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having us, Jeff. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to participate.
Thank you. A lot of people here from education as well, so this will be nice for them. And last but not least, Josh Sal, the district manager with Cummins Facility Services or Cummins Facility Services. Josh, I've worked with a lot of your people, and I'm glad you're here today.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I'm glad to be here as well.
If only I could say the name right, Cummins Facility Services. So
CFS.
well, that is easier. You should have told me earlier. All right. Well, glad to have you three here. Let's get into it. Let's start with flooring identification. We're going to start at the basics, and we're going to work our way up to handling all the tough challenges that are out there. But this is something I think we need to spend a few minutes on. And Dane, let's start with you on this. I know you teach classes that do this. You're an expert. Our question right there in the middle, how do you identify the types of floors you're cleaning so you can better match maintenance processes and products to the job? And how important is that?
It's extremely important, Jeff. I mean, you've got to know what you're working on so you know the characteristics of the materials and how they're going to react when you start to put something on them, right? So what I tell people in the SMT class, which is stone, masonry, and tile, I kind of keep it there for the moment. Everybody wants to do it visually. They want to look at it and identify and say, "Oh, I know what this is." But with all the new products out there today and the way they're looking closer to the natural products, you want to take the time to not only look visually, so some keys for visually, right? Let's stay in the tile area. If you can see a pattern in the floor of tiles that match the pattern around in different parts of the installation, whether they're quarter turned or half turned or some other way, that's one way you can tell. Mother Nature doesn't make identical items that you're going to find out in the field. So you're looking for the pattern or lack of pattern for one, is what you're going to look at. And then the second thing I'm looking at is, how is the floor finished? You know, does it have a diamond shine on it, or does it have some sort of a glaze coating, or what are we talking about there? To get some idea of what we're going to do, because if I understand that natural versus man-made, I'm going to understand the characteristics. I'm going to know what to use.
Sounds a little bit like carpet cleaning to me.
Um,
Well, the man-made versus synthetic part of it, or
right.
man-made versus natural part of it.
Yeah. Well, anytime you have natural, you're going to have more risk potentially and more concern, and probably a little bit of a higher price that you're going to have to deal with. So you want to take those factors into consideration and make sure that we understand that. What I tell a lot of people too is, if you haven't done this in a while, go to your local flooring store and see what's new and see what they're selling a lot of, so you can come familiar with it. You get into the luxury vinyl category, and there's so many different types of top materials, veneers, with many different types of cores, trying to find that sweet spot now so they can have those things actually behave a little bit better than they've been behaving in some of the buildings that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Very good. William, let's move to you. I know your specialty is with education facilities. So what would you add to this?
Yeah, I would add as well to Dane is, as well as the visual inspection, you want to do a physical inspection. You want to get down there and actually touch the item that you're working with to determine, is it LVT? Is it terrazzo? Is it another kind of stone? And also, before you get ready to apply any kind of material in a wide space, you want to take a small corner in the back or somewhere and then try to apply that material, that product that you're going to be using, to see how it's going to react with the surface that you're cleaning.
All right, very good. And Josh, I know in the building service contracting industry, you must come across everything. Tell us about it.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Something I think I would add to that is, now that they're coming out with a lot of new types of flooring, even rubber now, the rubber square tiles, they're starting to look a lot like the VCT. So one might think, I've got VCT. Well, in fact, it's possibly rubber floor. So much like what William said, get down, if it's soft, porous, you can kind of get a good idea if you're really down in there and looking at it.
Appreciate that. I did put a chat question in asking what types of floors do our attendees deal with. I'm seeing LVT, VCT, a lot of the same stuff. It looks like some concrete. Is it surprising to any of you? Looks about right from what you see out there.
Yeah, it looks about right from what I'm seeing coming up on the chat. Let's see, a lot of LVT and VCT. I started with VCT. That was fairly easy. You had a supermarket looking tile, And typically they were white or a version of that, maybe into the gray, and you knew you were going to put a finish on it. And in today's world, a finish is not always something that's going to be required. So you want to be aware of what are the manufacturers saying about what they want on their materials and on their flooring.
Good points. And we will talk about finishes later in our webinar as well. Jessica put in that some interesting products. There's Carrera marble. So obviously some expensive items as well will come across, but thank you all for that. So would you say that becoming an expert at flooring identification is an easy task?
Not at all.
No, I think as time goes on and you have so many other tiles and other surfaces trying to mimic a high-end look, you're just going to have to be able to get down and work with these variety of surfaces to be able to identify them. As Dane said, not everyone is going to be able to be identified visually.
Yeah, but back to what Dane said earlier, man-made or natural, maybe that's the big picture. But great tips from all of you, practical things to do to identify these flooring materials. All right, let's move on and have our next sponsor message.
Low maintenance flooring can have a low tolerance when it comes to scuffs and scratches. Foot traffic, luggage bags, carts, furniture, and equipment, it all adds up every day to make floors look dull and damaged. Not anymore. Ecolab No Low Maintenance Flooring Cleaner and Protector is a solution that's specially designed for this type of flooring, such as luxury vinyl tile, laminate, rubber, sheet vinyl, and linoleum. This convenient daily use formula not only cleans floors, but also repairs minor scratches in the wear layer without adding a topical coating like floor finish. Dirt particles are whisked out of scratches, and a clear solution fills in the grooves. This brings back the original look of the surface. You save time and money by eliminating the need for extra maintenance and tile replacement. Ecolab No Low Maintenance Flooring Cleaner and Protector keeps floors looking clean and new, no matter how heavy the traffic might get.
Of course, we thank Ecolab for their sponsorship as well. Let everyone know we're going to camp on this slide for a little while because these are the big challenges. We asked the industry what they're dealing with, what they're concerned with. We put together a list of things here. So we may go deep into some of these, and some might be a little faster than others. But as you can see here, we have tile and grout, high traffic areas, slip and fall concerns, scratches, scuffs, and stains. That one might get the most attention. Of course, technician proficiency and efficiency. But as our experts talk about what they like to share about these points, as an attendee, feel free in the chat to put your top flooring challenges, maybe certain things you see, issues you have, challenges you just haven't figured out how to solve. Put them in the chat, ask questions, and we'll keep an eye on that and try to get to those as well. But let's go ahead and get started. William, let's start with you. These top challenges, which of these concern you the most? You can start at the top with tile and grout, or pick one.
I'm going to start with first, let's talk about slips and fall concerns. And the reason why I say that is your setup. The way that you set up your area to get ready to clean is extremely important so that you are making sure there are no hazards for anyone that is going to be around. We work in a healthcare environment, and there are very few times that the buildings are unoccupied. So you have to be aware that you're going to put your wet floor signs down at about every 25 to 50 feet, depending on the size of the area. Additionally, you can also use some barricades as well where you can cut off one side of the hall so individuals can continue to walk on the other side of the hall. That way you can ensure people are aware before they come up on the area where you are working.
Good tips. It sounds like you know what a lawyer is.
Unfortunately so. We are quite litigious here in Chicago.
Yeah, I guess we didn't mention where you're from, William, Chicago, but all kidding aside, we don't want people to get hurt, but we realize the liability is a big issue. It's something we all need to think about. Josh, let's go to you next. Which ones would you like to cover?
Well, I can piggyback off of William for just a second on slips and falls. I covered that very well, actually. But as far as like barricading and everything now, they've changed up a little bit. So they've added some things in terms of barricading for safety. You can have caution tape, which a lot of people use, or also now there's red danger tape because everybody thinks caution, I can just proceed with caution, and then they're slipping and falling on stripper and whatnot. So that's a very important thing to manage. Scratches, scuffs, and stains. I think that's a very important topic to know about, especially with the flooring that you have. Take, for instance, an LVT flooring. Somebody might think strip and wax, but as that video we just saw, there was a wear, on the floor, or what they call a factory finish. It's very important to not take that off. If you're laying down stripper and strip the floor, that takes off that protective coating. And then when you lay down wax on top of it, it tends to just peel off. So it's very important, once again, to know what kind of flooring you're dealing with, and knowing what kind of products you need to use to maintain that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And
Well,
Dane, how about you?
Yeah, well said. The safety part obviously is a big concern when you're dealing with occupied buildings, and my colleagues covered that very well. So I'll take the tile and grout side of this, if you don't mind. I saw some things coming up with dirty grout lines and applying grout sealers and things of that nature, but let's just study grout for a second. When you think about the cleaning of a tile and grout, the tile is relatively easy compared to the grout. And when I'm teaching an SMT class, I'm asking people, well, why is grout so difficult to clean? And they always come up with the same idea. They go, well, it's porous. And I'm like, well, that's part of it, but there's another part to it. It's also a valley in between the tiles, and that's where all the soil is going to end up because the tools we use in our industry are flat and the floor is not. And so our dust mops and our contact mops and our flat mops are going to push that dry soil into those areas, and then we're going to bring a scrubber out and we're going to make that mud, and we're going to do all that. But even beyond that, look at the grout itself. When the grout was installed, it was even with the tile because that's how the installer did it. They floated that grout in. Grout being a cement mixture is going to turn into concrete when it cures. And the more water they use in the cure, the deeper that valley may be. Because most of the time, and I always get a little pushback on this because I don't know a lot of installers, but they're going to tell us that, the reality of the whole thing is to mix a 50-pound bag of grout. It doesn't matter whose grout it is. Could be Tex, could be, Mapes or anybody's. You need 124 ounces of water, which is less than a gallon. Nobody wants to mix it that dry because it's hard to move. And so by the time you get there, what you have to realize is every batch of grout you see as a technician is a one-off. It was made by a person in that building on that particular day. They mix it with the water to make it happen. If they use too much, the valley is going to be deeper and you're going to get more soil in there. If they mix it correctly, it's going to be closer to the edge of the tile and you're not going to have that same issue. So it's looking at that as how much soil can I allow to be in there, and then how do I take care of that? We said we're going to do sealers and coatings afterwards. I prefer not to use a coating on those situations because it's going to have to come off at some point and it's not really a good mix for that. But at the same time, to put a penetrating sealer on there, you got to know how big the pores are. And so you can apply some moisture to it and see how fast it disappears. If it goes quickly, it's going to take a lot of sealer because that means the pores are big. And so you have to evaluate all those things before you can say, hey, here's what I'm going to do here, because that's why it's difficult to take care of, is because it's the valley.
Good information. Who knew there was more to this than just the cleaning part?
Yes, I was in that really, really great, Dane. And we also want to, like you said, not all flat mops or mop pads or string mops are going to get inside of that valley. So some things that we're going to want to use are brushes that can agitate within that area,
So why is it, with all this information in it, it's somewhat known how to do the work, that we see so much dark grout when it should be lighter? What's the issue with that? Josh, what do you see out there in your world?
Improper maintenance. or frequency is not there.
Okay.
I'd like to go on this one. I'm going to go do with dirty mop water. This is look at any commercial building you go into. I go into a lot of airports because I travel a lot, and any men's room I'm in, I see the dirt and the grout line going 3 inches up the wall. Well, the only way that happens is with a dirty mop head, and a dirty mop head's coming out of a dirty mop bucket. Because realistically, you only get one dip of that mop into that clean bucket of solution. After that, you make a soil redistribution system. So you've got to find another way to make this happen. Smaller scrubbers, things that we're not reusing the dirty water would be great tools to be thinking about that, because I get it. We have to mop some of the time. We just don't have another choice. But at the same time, it's what's causing this dirty grout to happen in the first place.
Soil redistribution. That sounds like an official system of cleaning, but it's not. All right. So we talked about tile and grout, slip and fall concerns. Let's go to high traffic areas. And Josh, let's start with you on this one. So when it comes to high traffic areas, what are some good practices to think about to keep it looking as good as the areas that are not as high trafficked?
Well, just to know that, obviously that floor is going to get a lot more traffic on it. The quality of the floor is just not going to last in terms of finish that is on it. So maybe upping the frequency of running an auto scrubber on it, or the frequency of when the floor is getting recoated, repolished, sealed, etc. Those are the best ideas to take. Make that area better.
All right. Now, Dane, what about like pivot points on high traffic areas, like around a corner from in a hallway that might turn? Any thoughts there to keeping that looking good?
Well, again, you go back to the frequency issue. When do I have the ability to get there? How often can I get there? What tools do I need to take that away in that high traffic area? Or maybe it's more of a, we have to go there at some point during the shift to minimize the amount of soil that's going to be in those particular locations. So when I look at a commercial building, a lot of times people are doing, they're vacuuming wall to wall every day or whatever, where there's ways we can address the high traffic areas with more frequency, and then the other areas with less frequency where there's less soil. So I'm thinking entryways, main lobbies, hallways off those main lobbies. I want to spend more time in those particular places and do more systems, maybe with low moisture cleaning if you're dealing with carpet or something like that, where we can get in and do a maintenance function before we have to do a restoration.
And William, you deal with school facilities for the most part, I believe.
Yeah, healthcare and school facilities, K-12, higher ed. And what I would say is the thing that's going to get you for the high traffic areas, one is going to be if you have a matting program, right? So when you have people entering your building from off of the streets, the matting is going to be able to trap that dirt, dust, concrete, or snow. That's one thing. Another thing is that in high traffic areas, you're going to want to have to burnish frequently, right? And whether you're talking about a hog hair pad for the VCT, or you're talking about a purple diamond pad for terrazzo, those are the things that are going to give you the shine and the pop. And as my colleague said, that goes back to the consistency and the frequency of how you're doing it. And like Dane said, you may have to have someone come in during the shift. Another thing is you can have that person during the shift use a tennis ball on a stick to eliminate the marks, the black marks from people's shoes, so that it is not as cumbersome when you get ready to try to clean later in the night.
Now, William, you just took us to the next one by accident, but maybe not. You mentioned the tennis ball and the scuffs. That's our next category: scratches, scuffs, and stains. I think we've all seen someone pushing around a tennis ball, and that works, right? So that's what matters.
It works. It definitely works. And, you're also going to want to make sure that you're burnishing correctly, using the correct kind of pad for the surface that you're using. You're not going to want to use a red burnishing pad on terrazzo, just as you wouldn't use a purple diamond pad on some of those non-finished surfaces that we saw earlier in the presentation. So you want, as Josh mentioned, you want to look at the manufacturer and what they are suggesting you use for the products that are in your facilities.
Very good. And Josh, how about you when we talk about scratches, scuffs, and stains? Because just like with carpet, when you walk into a facility and they have carpet, you see the stains, you see the worn areas, you see the imperfections. The same has to apply to hard floors. What do you do as a company to identify and address, and what's in your toolbox for that?
Well,
big question.
Yeah, it has a lot of parts to it. As soon as you walk in, main hallway, there's usually you want to see like matting and like right in front, so that it'll catch a lot of the things that you're maybe grabbing on your feet. I can't tell you how many times we walk into a facility and there's nothing there, so you're dragging everything from outside inside. Now some places even have like the sticky mats, so if you're on your shoes, it's just catching everything for you, which is nice, and that helps a lot with the scratches and whatnot. I think that's really about all I have to say for that one.
We'll come back to you because the point of a conversation is others will spark a thought. So let's go to Dane, who's seen a few scratches, scuffs, and stains in his time.
Sure. Well, when you look at the scratches and scuffs, it got to depend on what type of flooring you're dealing with also. If
Back
you
to
got
that.
scratches and scuffs on a natural stone floor, I'm thinking marble, limestone, travertine, somewhere in there, you can polish those out with diamond tools or diamond impregnated pads or the diamond on top pads. There's lots of varieties of those out there now that can go underneath even auto scrubbers for handling large areas. If you've got that in, I saw a lot of things coming up on the chat with stains in VCT. Well, it depends on where the stain is. If it's something that fell from the air, a drink spill or something like that. If it's in the sacrificial finish layer, take the finish off and replace it. But if it's gotten into the VCT, vinyl composition tile means there's other products in there besides vinyl. So typically it's a limestone powder type product that's in there, given it its rigidity. And so you take the material, if it's soaked into there, you might have to replace that tile. It may not be something you can get out unless it's very near the top, and you might lightly sand that down a little bit if you're going to cover it with a finish and try to fix something like that. But stains are going to be a problem if they've gotten into or beyond the wear layer of the material that's there. And so you have to make that evaluation based on the floor type that it is. I would take terrazzo, for example. The traditional terrazzo was a Portland cement matrix with a marble chip in it. And both of those would have a tendency to be porous. And so if you have a porous floor like that, sometimes you can cause a wicking action with a poultice type material to try to lift that stain out of those pores and do it that way. Think of like an oil slick or an oil spot on a concrete driveway. The same idea. Some oil dry on there would try to bring that back up. There's poulticing products out there that will do the same thing with your terrazzo or your natural stone products that have pores in it.
Good tips. William, what would you add to that? Anything?
I think that my colleagues have covered this very well. There's different kinds of products that you want to use to try to even it out, or in some cases you may have to replace. We also have to think about the time and labor that it's going to take you to remove that stain. Do you have that in your labor budget? Is this something that can be replaced, or is this something that we have to eliminate?
Okay. So what are some typicals to expand on the stain part of it? Because a scratch is damage, you might have to replace, or I imagine there's some certain flooring you could sand a little bit to try to remove that. The scuffs we covered, but what kind of stains do you normally see on your jobs? Josh, is there a specific kind of stain on hard floor you see with Cummins?
We see a lot of oil stains, Okay. Also, metal factories, so you get the metal shavings in the floor also, which would then again be the scratches damaged, the floor needs replaced. But a lot of times for the oil, I've seen a lot of comments come in Shineline multi-surface cleaner works pretty well. There's plenty of chemicals and other companies that have a lot of great things. So don't take things just one. But knowing like the chemicals that you can get your hands on to use to get to that stain as quickly as possible before it really sets in, make a big difference in trying to get the stains out.
I've seen a couple of comments about salt.
Yes.
Do we have that issue in Ohio, Josh?
All the time. Biggest thing with salt, making sure you get it up first, and really can go with getting any floor clean, making sure you get the soil up first. If you have a bunch of salt on the floor, don't want to just run the auto scrubber over it first. Sweep, mop if you can, then run your machines over it to get it up the best you can. Sometimes a little bit of glass cleaner, vinegar, make a big difference in the salt, but making sure you get it up first to make sure it's not smearing. If you're just mopping over, it's just going to smear. You're going to have a white haze on the floor, which if you do get that, then you can buff the floor if the floor is, allows you to do that.
Very good. So we're going to have a Q&A that will answer more of these questions because I see a lot in the chat about specific issues. One was the cartwheel scuffs. I mean, that would be a daily occurrence, I would think, on some floors. But before we move on to the next slide, Dane, I know you're a professional trainer. Can you talk a bit about the importance of technician proficiency and efficiency and education like this today?
Yeah, it goes back to, I saw something float up through the webinar chat about, what I mentioned last time about, putting additional frequencies to certain areas, and a response came back, and I just saw it as it was going up the chat box there, that it was sometimes with today's labor costs, it's difficult to put more frequencies in. And I agree with that 100%. It's much more difficult to do that. What we have to do is explore ways to make our technicians more proficient by putting better tools in their hands, finding ways to, limit. A lot of times, I came from a contractor background, and so we did carpet restoration all the time because we had a carpet restoration tool that we could use, which was a truck-mounted cleaning system. But we find out that may be overkill in some cases. There are other efficiencies and other tools out there that will bring you more efficiency, where you can get the same level, a higher level of productivity, but you have to remove a lesser amount of soil. So the frequency increases, but the productivity increases at the same time. And so when you balance that out over the course of a quarter or a half of a year, you're still keeping the labor cost near the same location. Or, what I find using a lot of times, counter-rotating brush machines as a better process for the maintenance plan in your periodic services before you get to restoration. So it's putting a plan together that makes sense and putting the right tools in the technician's hands to make them more proficient.
So let's talk about surface protection before our message. Briefly, how powerful is this for protecting the floor, and what are some misuse issues that we see out there? William, in the schools that you deal with?
It is super important that you have that layer of protective finish on the floor, because what that is going to do is that is going to protect your surface. That is going to decrease the amount of labor that you are applying to that floor. And it also is going to reduce the amount of times that you may have to strip. There in some instances in schools and in universities, every summer it will start off, oh, well, it's time to strip the floors. Well, with the new brands and the new products, you do not have to strip every year. It is not necessary. So the importance of this is putting the right kind of sealant on the floor, the right kind of finish, and making sure that you're not mixing the old finish with the new finish. So especially if you're stripping, you want to make sure that you have done a complete strip, because you'll see, and as you can observe in some areas or some floors, you'll have a yellowing of the floor, and that's because you've got these two different products that are mixed. And even if you burnish, you're still going to have that uneven consistency that you don't want to see.
Now, I can't imagine someone would put finish on a floor that they shouldn't put finish on. That never happens, right, Dane?
Oh, heavens to Betsy, no. This is why it's so important that you get people trained, and you get them trained on your scrubbers and how to restore the equipment that you have, because the equipment that you have is going to take you as far as you want to go. If you don't treat the equipment well, you're going to always go back to inefficient methods.
We hit a nerve with William right there.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Dane, what do you think?
Well, one of my pet peeves is when I see finishes placed on floors that they shouldn't have finish on. A lot of times that's over ceramic or porcelain tiles. Those floors are designed to take the foot traffic. You don't need a sacrificial finish on those, but a lot of times, because that's what they're used to with their VCT floors and some other things, they want to put this product out there. It's not a great system for that finish to bond very well. And so what I end up seeing is, not only do they not put good quality floor finishes down, they go to a more permanent type of finish, like an epoxy or a urethane, where it's not designed to be in that particular area. And those are much more difficult to remove. And I'll get emails from former students that'll say, I know you talked about this in the class and you said not to do this, but I did it and I can't get all the finish off because you don't know what stripper to use. Floor finish stripper removes floor finish. That's it. That's all it does. When you have a urethane or an epoxy, you need one of those types of strippers on there, and those are usually pretty powerful. And so you end up, putting yourself in this very risky situation of having a finish where it really doesn't belong. Right. And so you have those particular issues, and that's one of the things that I deal with, on a pretty regular basis. From that, there's also the types of finishes where there's newer technology that's out there now. Like, for example, when you talk about luxury vinyl tile, there's some manufacturers that are okay with putting another finish over the top of their wear layer. There's other ones that are not. And the thing that came with luxury vinyl tile was that matte look to make it look like wood, where you didn't have that shine like you used to have with the Mannington vinyl that you used to buy, where it had that super high, supermarket reflectivity shine on it. And it's hard to find a finish that's not going to add shine to it. But there's some newer products out there. They're covalent bonds that you can put down over luxury vinyl to give it some protection. And one of the things I've seen with one particular company is they have a product that if you've got something that already is shiny and you don't want it that shiny, you can use one of their coatings and make it to a matte finish. That's newer technology. I haven't had a lot of time to play with it, but I'm intrigued by what I've seen so far.
There's always innovation. There's always something better. So before we move on, Josh, anything to add to this?
We run into that a lot. LVT, using the wrong kind of coatings on those type of floors, or even using urethane on VCT. It's very important to know what you're going to put on the floor and what is already on the floor, so you're not mixing it or creating a big problem.
Very good. And a lot of comments in the chat about this. People see it. One said, Jennifer said, we see so many floors that shouldn't have finish and floors that need a finish but never have it. That's called real world, I guess. So
it is the real world. And that is why this topic is so important about technician proficiency and knowledge, because it doesn't matter what products that you have. If the mentality is, well, we're just going to go in here and strip, or we're just going to coat, and you have the wrong coating on there, well, now you've caused double work.
And Jeff, if I can just piggyback on that for 1 second on what William said, there are courses and training programs out there for this. And I think that's really what I'd like to see people do. And it doesn't matter which training course you go to. The key thing here is a lot of the training that comes into the custodial market is product level training, which shows you how. But you get into IICRC training, and now we're going to tell you why. And I think the why is much more important than the how.
Totally.
Yes. And very important to consider that for all of your team. But now we can do our actual sponsor message.
Nexus TPPL batteries from Enersys provide exceptional performance and flexibility, making them ideal for floor care equipment. Nexus TPPL batteries offer up to 10% increased energy savings and up to twice the life of traditional flooded or AGM batteries. Their unique design provides up to 20% more power than same-sized conventional batteries and can be fast charged in less than 2 hours. Nexus TPPL batteries are maintenance-free and never need watering, with a sealed design that eliminates spills. To learn more about Nexus TPPL batteries, visit enersys.com/floorcare.
Another valuable sponsor. We appreciate that message. We have two more quick topics before our Q&A. We have a lot of questions too that we will try to get to, but if we can't get to all your questions that you put in, we'll make an effort to follow up later as well. But time-saving maintenance procedures, what are some things, some quick tips that you've noticed over your career that can help save time on maintenance processes? Josh, anything you do at Cummins there to make things quicker, whether it's prepping a job or making sure the certain equipment's there for the crew?
Oh, yes. Obviously, with the new tech that's out here now, as opposed to old school, maybe side by sides, a lot of manual labor. It's very intensive. The process takes a little bit longer with today's standards, and get it done. There's a lot of new machinery. So one of our new things is to implement those into what we're doing, making things a lot faster. So, at airports and whatnot, you have bigger areas, automatic waxing machines, a lot of different kind of scrubbers that are out there, robotic scrubbers. Some of them are even fancy now with rear view cameras, and it's crazy. But I think having those things at hand help out tremendously. Also with kind of goes back and forth, but whatever equipment that you're purchasing, a lot of times too, they offer classes on what you're using. So if you buy a new piece of equipment and you're expecting your staff to know how to use it, maybe you're not using it correctly and it's taking longer than it should. Knowing how many square foot per hour the machine might be able to clean or strip the floor makes a big difference in taking those classes and or researching what you're doing.
You mentioned keeping up with equipment innovation, robotic equipment, which has to be worked into the budget. William, how tough of a sell is that for schools to embrace that type of time-saving maintenance where they're spending more on the equipment but saving on labor? Is that a conversation?
I think that's a conversation that you have to have, whether you are a contract worker or contract employee, or whether you are over a school district. Having automatic scrubbers does not automatically eliminate the need for a floor tech. Yes, it is an assistant, right? So while I have the automatic scrubber going on one floor, I could have the floor tech prepping the other floor by dust mopping, picking up gum, scraping, things of that nature. So it does not eliminate it, but what it does do is the automatic scrubber never calls off. It never says, I don't want to do this area, right? So you are programming that to be able to help save time, but simultaneously, it's important that you are prepping the area in the correct way so that you're getting the efficiency that you're looking for. You understand? If not, it's a two-part problem. So we want one hand to wash the other and the face get clean, meaning that your facility is looking good for the occupants the next day.
Good advice. And Dane, anything to add to that?
I think they've covered it pretty well.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with you on the next one then, since you had nothing for that one.
All right.
We think about restoration tips. And obviously, when a floor is just beyond cleaning, there has to be something more that's done. So Dane, in your experience, what are some strategies you can share, some common issues where you have to go a bit farther than cleaning that our audience will appreciate?
Well, when you look at the 4 levels of clean, you've got your initial program that you have to put when the floor is first installed. You get your routine maintenance that when you do that well, you'll do less of the restoration maintenance. But you've got that space in between that we call periodic or interim maintenance. And that's where I like to live, is in that space. That space means less soil, higher production times. And so I've got when I look at a building, when I see a building from outside or I'm driving up to talk to a potential client, I'll start thinking about the way to break that building down So I don't want to get to restoration. When it's gotten to that point already, you've got to decide, do I want to replace? What can I do to this particular product, whatever it is, to get it back up to speed again? People were mentioning about terrazzo, that because it's traditionally a concrete stone mix. The newer ones are epoxy stone mixes. There's ways that you can, polish them back out. You can take off that damaged layer off the top with either diamond impregnated pads or diamond on top pads or actual diamond tooling that was used to bring it up and flatten it out in the first place to bring it back for that restoration tip. And that's what I would do on a terrazzo floor that we wanted to fix that way.
Not everyone can see it, but you got a thumbs up from William.
Man, he's on. You're preaching to the choir right there. I'm a convert, Dane. Way to be.
Thank you.
Exactly.
And Josh, anything there?
Restoration, definitely a lot better if it's concrete or terrazzo. You actually have a chance of saving the floor as opposed to, man-made and synthetic. It's when you get into the plastics and whatnot, can't really save it.
So thinking back to what Dane said, the keeping it clean, keeping the soil off, maintaining it, because no one wants to have that conversation about replacement, do they?
No, they don't.
No. So avoid that by using these great ideas that we've talked about today. But let's move into our last sponsor message, and then we'll do our Q&A.
Since 1969, Americo Manufacturing Company has been innovating high-quality, effective floor care products manufactured with pride in the USA. Headquartered in Ackworth, Georgia, we offer a full line of floor pads made from 100% recycled PET fiber and natural content. We combine American-made quality with tested sustainability technology, giving you the confidence that clean floors need not come at the cost of our environment. Visit our website to learn more about Americo's commitment to sustainability, green cleaning, and a cleaner way forward.
So we appreciate Americo and their sponsorship as well. We have a good 10 minutes or so. We might go a little overtime, but let's get into our questions. And Martha, you can kill the slide deck if you like, and we'll just have our 4 squares on screen. So
there we are.
We have some tough questions. Are you guys okay with getting some stumpers?
Sure.
All right. Here's one. My question is, I have a floor with marble, which is damaged with an acid-based chemical, and the color of the floor is damaged. Which is the best option for cleaning or floor treatment?
Oof. Not really a stumper, but the color of the marble is damaged. You can bring the shine back. I'm not sure how you're going to replace the color on the marble, though. That's going to be a very difficult one to go through. I don't know of a way to replace the color. I can get it shiny again. I can do that, but I don't know about replacing color.
Okay.
Sometimes if you're lucky enough, a grind, if you grind the floor, if it's just gone in a little bit, you can get that out. That's intensive, though.
Yeah, it's a marble floor, so intensive. We don't want that word, do we? No.
Well, it depends on how porous the material is. Some marble's not very porous, and so it's not going to go too deep. But if it's gone deeper than what we can get with grinding, we're going to be stuck with that spot again.
Mm-hmm. We've had a couple of questions about rust. Let's talk about rust stains. How do you remove rust from ceramic flooring, VCT? I saw in the chat a couple other comments about rust. So, William, what do you think? Rust on
I am
floors?
aware of a rust remover product. I have not had much success in larger areas with it. And offhand, I forget the name of the product, but usually what I'm dealing with is the VCT and the rust or something from that nature. And sometimes it is stripping that layer of finish off and then coming back. Other times the tile is too damaged and it just needs to be replaced.
Okay.
I can piggyback off that real quick.
Sure.
The rust remover, we've used that too, and also it kind of helps activate and pull that out. It's a little bit of stainless steel, steel wool. Kind of just get it with the floor and it comes up.
Mhm.
At least helps it. Watch the grit though, but it's a difference.
All right. Here's another one at LAX, the airport. We have terrazzo in some restrooms. We use a quiet disinfectant that eats the sealer. What combination of sealant and disinfectant should be used? Is that one we want to tackle? This is real world, people.
Yeah, I think that depending on how you want to maintain your terrazzo, if you want to put a topical coating on it, the one thing you're going to want to make sure that you do is you have a non-resilient floor finish. The only one that I'm aware of is SC Johnson's Plaza is made for non-resilient floors because you don't want it to walk right off of the area. And if you're going to coat it with that, if you're not going to coat it with that, use a penetrating sealer in the terrazzo and then clean with a neutral cleaner on a regular basis. And that penetrating sealer will be there to repel any of those particular liquid products that get on there, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these real world concerns that are coming in. Any other thoughts before we get another question, William?
No, that especially in the, I agree with what Dane said, especially because you have a lot of moisture in the bathroom already. So it just depends on are you going to have it on top, or are you going to have something that's a penetrating sealer, and then work with that neutral cleaner that you can help to eliminate that area, that issue.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. How do we clean or restore natural stone that's covered in restaurant fat? It's penetrated into both the tile and the grout.
So they do have some cleaners that do work. Like, for one thing that I have used previously is Spitfire. Spitfire is an all-purpose power cleaner, and that has a very high success rate in terms of removing anything that is on that floor. You are in the restaurant industry, so there are some cleaners that specifically work with the lipids and the fats that are in foods, and that will break them down.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that with maybe some enzymatic action with some enzyme type cleaners, biomodifiers, things like that we can apply to that. I used to do restaurant carpet, but you get into, now one of the things I will say about like a restaurant kitchen, if it's the example, if there's that much protein in the grout lines, for example, I've actually done this where I've taken a butter knife and scrape the grout of the protein before we put a detergent on it to give the detergent a fighting chance, because there was just so much of it would overwhelm the detergent. So we scraped it first carefully, and then we applied our detergent to that, and the enzymatic product worked well.
I'm not sure I'd like that job.
No, it was not pleasant.
No. All right. Here's a good one. You tell me if it's a good one or not, you three experts. What's the primary difference between a burnish and buffing?
Speed.
Speed?
Yeah, the RPMs of the machine. If it's now, there's different. I used to be a buffer back in the day. I spray buff floors with a 175, so that's how far back I go. And those of you who are hearing this know how far back that is. 175 turned into 350, and then into 500. And then, so what I was always told, and I don't know this to be true, but anything under 1,000 is buffing. Anything over 1,000 RPMs is considered burnishing. But again, could depend on the pad too.
Mm-hmm.
Same chicken, different gravy. Like Dane said, it's the speed. You know, some of the higher buffers are at 1,600 RPM. So when you're looking at that, it's actually burning the finish into the floor, right? Rather than just giving it the topical, moving the solutions around.
Good information. Josh, anything to add?
Just be aware of what you're burnishing. If there's only one coat down and you're going to burnish, more than likely you might take it off, especially depending on the pad you're using.
All right. This one might be for William for the most part. I don't know. Regarding hardwood gym floors, which would be in most schools, right? What's your recommendation for daily maintenance? Are walk-behind scrubbers safe to use on wood floors? They're concerned with damaging the wood and the amount of water to use.
safe to use on wood floors, but what you must do is you have to look at the auto scrubber that you are using, and you can adjust the amount of water that is being put down on that floor. You do not want to oversaturate that floor, that wood floor, because you're going to have to worry about the wood bending and damaging the wood there. So that is definitely something that you want to keep an eye on.
Okay. Anything to add, Dane or Josh?
No, William covered it pretty well.
Yeah, you did.
I saw another one here about propane buffers. What are your thoughts on using them? Someone said they used them in the past. They want to use them again, but they're getting pushback. Propane buffers. Josh wants to answer that one.
Yeah, today's day and age, it's hard to gauge. You know, if you want to go battery powered, they don't last as long, right? Versus if you know, propane, it lasts a long time. Electrical cords, you know, if you have one that plugs in, if you're in a nursing home hospital setting and you don't want residents tripping over your cord, it really just depends on the facility that you're trying to tackle. But propane is still used pretty heavily today, especially in factories, wide open spaces where you only have a small time constraint to get it done.
I've seen them buzzing up and down aisles in grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. We've had a couple questions about tire marks, like in dealerships, or just tires that are running over floors, leaving marks. What would we do with that? There were probably 4 or 5 different comments on that.
Leaving part of the rubber behind, or
Sounds like it.
so more like a scuff. You know,
Tennis ball.
Well, the tennis ball might help. That's more for a heel mark from what I've seen. And I still, by the way, as I walk through a supermarket, I see when I rub it out with my shoe.
Yeah, you too.
I've done it forever.
I hate it. I can't.
But there you might have to, if it's rubber from a car, you might have to actually put a little moisture on there and scrape that with a razor blade or something to get that excess rubber off the surface. Just be careful. And you know, best of luck to you.
Best of luck to you. That's good advice. William, you got kind of excited there. What do you have to add?
Oh yeah. Well, when you're doing floors, it's hard when you could be in Walmart, Target, any of these places, in a hospital or school, and you see that, and I'm like, dang, I'm eliminating that with the back of my shoe because I see it, and it's hard to turn off when you are in other places, right? Because you see it and it's like, oh, well, I see this, I know what's happening, you know what I mean? So it's part of a fraternity that we are all into together.
Yep.
Very good. And Josh, anything there?
Just for the tire marks, getting a really good, you know, kind of degreaser for that and an auto scrubber with the pad can help too. If it's on concrete, you know, you can use a pretty decently aggressive pad to help get that off.
We've had a couple, thank you. We've had a couple comments about baseboards. I know, Dane, you talked about the dirty mop hitting up the wall a bit, a few inches. But when you're cleaning the floor, you don't want to forget the baseboards. Any quick tips on maintaining them? Or is it just get on your hands and knees and clean them? Dane, go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes they have to be cleaned. What we trained our technician to do back in the day was the baseboard wasn't part of the floor, so we weren't going to put any finish on it. Well, we weren't going to put any water on it. That's part of the wall in my estimation. And so we just told them to, you know, stay away from that. If we had to, sometimes we were taking over a building where they had put finish on the baseboards and we had to take it off. We found some companies had an aerosol spray foam type action that would stay on that baseboard and wouldn't drop off, because it's really hard to get stripper on a baseboard and make it stay. What I was talking about was we use the tile as a baseboard, and the grout line gets soiled as it goes up. The tiles themselves usually don't, but the grout line can be tricky that way. But it's a dirty mop, so eliminate the dirty mop and the dirty mop bucket, which is another one of my pet peeves, and it'll be a lot better for us out there.
Very good.
I totally agree. When you're working with these baseboards, whether you are auto scrubbing or something, or if you're doing project work, you can attempt to cover the baseboards so that you don't damage them when you're doing stripping. And as Dane said, it's that dirty mop water and that residual mop hitting the baseboards and making them dirty. You can also use the baseboard stripper. It is labor intensive and you will have to get down on your hands and knees and agitate with the pad.
Say baseboard stripper and electric doodle bug helps out tremendously.
Yes.
Tremendously.
Electric doodle bug.
Still you know, a little maintenance-y, but electric doodle bug is a lifesaver. You can use it for various things, stripping and waxing in a small bathroom, trying to get around a toilet. Sorry, I'm done ranting, but they're great.
It's physical work, that's for sure. One more question. We are over time, so we kept several hundred with us here to the end through an extended webinar. But let's wrap up with this question. I think it could be a fun one, maybe an impossible one. The person who asked this question says, I have to maintain a terrazzo floor at an airport rental car facility, 10,000 square feet. I only have 2 or 3 hours to resurface it.
Wow.
So, what do you think?
Working in sections is the only way you're going to get that done. Other than now, when you say resurface, I'm assuming you're talking about working with the terrazzo with maybe some diamond pads to bring the shine back up. Is kind of what I'm going to go with here, because they don't.
You can go with that. We don't have the details unless the person who asked the question is still here and they can put information.
So once you get it maintained, if you only have a couple of hours, you can actually take the diamond impregnated pads and put them underneath a floor machine, and you can clean and polish at the same time. You're going to put one of your higher grit levels there, depending on what type of traffic you get. But that's one way that you can eliminate having to bring it back up all the time. We're seeing a lot of colleges go to that idea of you know, working with those pads. They're more expensive, obviously, but you're going to get two birds with one stone, I guess is the term I would use. Yeah.
So Josh, your Cummins is given the task to do this. What would you do?
Definitely break it up night by night.
Double the price?
Yeah. You only have so many hours to do it. Yeah, you're definitely going to have to include some travel time in that. Couple months to do it. But definitely the clean and shine pads are awesome once you get it maintained. But break it down to sections, strip it out. Even if you don't have time to wax it, maybe you can leave your barricade up, or you're not waxing it, put down your finish, and finish it the next night.
So the person asking that question may not have that option, but that's really the option that should be looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. William, anything to add to that?
No, I agree. The brown sienna pad by 3M, that's going to clean and burnish at the same time. So you're getting, like the gentleman said, you're getting a 2-for-1. You're getting more bang for your buck if you've got a very short time to be able to restore. And I guess he or she is talking about restoring it, bringing back that shine.
Exactly. Yeah. So not every question has an easy answer. That's one thing I've learned in the past hour or so with all these hundreds of points coming across in the chat and the Q&A. So, but gentlemen, I think we shared a lot of great advice. You did, and appreciate your expertise. Hopefully those who are at our webinar today can take away a few good ideas, strategies, and use them in their work. And of course, all the questions that we received, we'll see what we can do about using those for follow-up in the future. So, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.